handled now. We can't carry on like this.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
Good evening, my name is Raj Amir. This is the 28th of February and I am responsible for the Recusant Nine platform. So if anyone is a far-right activist or a racist or an anti-Semite, you don't need to blame the people who listen in to what I have to say. Just blame me or try and pin it down on me, which JIM McMAHON most recently did. He claimed I was an anti-Semite and reported me to Facebook. JIM McMahon's attempts to silence me from Facebook have comprehensively failed yet again, just as he failed to have me arrested, just as he failed to have me shut down through his links with the cartel-controlled gangsters. JIM McMahon has comprehensively failed to close us down, and the reason why he is trying to close us all down is because he aspires to become Prime Minister of this country. And what he has done in our town, he wants to whitewash and hide away. But we're not going to let him do that. We are not only going to expose Jim and continue to expose Mr McMosk, we are going to expose this pattern of behaviour in Labour Party controlled towns and cities with a high ethnic minority community population across the country. Our democracy, our way of life is at risk, and we must intervene. Let's get on with this evening's transmission. I put up an emergency transmission this week, and it was to do with this man, Imran Youssef. Imran Youssef is sat on the end there. This is Debbie Abrahams. She is at the Pakistani Community Centre. Yes, they call the community centre the Pakistani Community Centre. Imagine how you or we would respond if a community centre was called the English Community Centre. But no, this is the Pakistani Community Centre in Glodick. And this is in the lead up to the 2019 election. Mr Youssef at this time, he is not a councillor, he is not an MP, yet he sits at the high table alongside Debbie Abrahams, Arood Shah and a number of other leading local councillors. Imran Youssef wants to be the councillor for St Mary's. This is Glodick. He's currently the prospective Labour Party candidate for Glodick. Imran Youssef sits at this high table with Debbie Abrahams just weeks before the election, and it was this high table and the vote at this table and these Pakistani men and women managed to secure for Debbie Abrahams. Significant number of these were postal votes, remember, that rescued Debbie Abrahams' parliamentary seat. She'd lost in 7 of the 9 wards, but because of her victory and the resounding victory in Glodick, she retained her MP seat. So there you go. This is Mr Imran Youssef. Do not doubt his power or influence in the Labour Party, even though he is not a councillor, even though he is not an MP. Mr Youssef was exposed part of the protests outside the Elbit factory alongside a group called Palestinian Action. Now this is why I think it's important I do a small historical analysis and Palestinian action. Now we all agree, and I'll put my face back up. We all agree that I have been active for a number of years. I've been active on trying to raise awareness and bring justice against the grooming gangs in my town. The groomers who groomed, raped, gang raped and trafficked white working class girls. The majority of these guys were Pakistani. None of what I say is controversial. It's been proven now, proven as a fact. And it's also been proven that white politicians, including JIM McMAHON, attempted to hide what took place, and words that were used were community relations. Now, I don't believe that hiding grooming and gang rape of our children benefits anyone, and I want the groomers and the gang rapers all put in prison. Unfortunately, some people don't. Now, in my protests, if I had protested alongside Tommy Robinson, or if I'd gone to a march where the EDL were protesting against the grooming and gang rape of children, whatever you think of Tommy Robinson and the EDL, I would be accused of fueling racism. I would have been accused of being a far-right activist. And so I have been careful in choosing the company I keep through which I raise awareness of these issues. Because I think the reasons why I may want to see justice done are completely different to the reasons why someone else or a group of other people may want to see action taken. And that is the reality of the space we occupy on these issues. They are politically loaded. So I want to see justice done because I work with children. I've spent my life working with children and strengthening communities, and I cannot stand and watch this continue. I know the far-right groups have hijacked this because no one else is brave enough to talk about it. So to see an opportunity to do what they do. Now bear with me 1 second. The reason why I share this now is, as always, context matters. Imran Youssef, would-be councillor for Oldham, attended a protest coordinated, led by Palestinian Action. Palestinian Action have been targeting Elbit systems and their businesses all across the country. Here is one in central London in last October. And you can see this article is recent, February the 10th, 2021. 5 members of Palestinian Action dedicated to closing down Elbit Systems' presence in Britain have been charged with counts of criminal damage and conspiracy to commit criminal damage after an attack on the Israeli company's headquarters building in central London last October. The 5 people charged, who have not so far been identified, were amongst those who took part in a protest involving the throwing of red paint over the frontage of the company's Kingsway premises in October the 10th, 2020. So the pattern at Elbit in Oldham is identical, the throwing of red paint, but in Oldham, matters took a more sinister turn as all the windows were smashed in a symbolic recreation of what took place at Kristallnacht and the lead up to the Nazis taking over in Germany. So that is who this group was. This councillor, or would-be councillor, a member of the Labour Party high table in Oldham, knowingly stood alongside a group who were engaged in unlawful activity. So that's the first bit you've got to bear in mind. This is a group that knowingly engage in criminal behaviour. These are 3 of the individuals who attend the Palestinian Action rallies and events. John Timon, Carol Foster and Sarah Wilkinson. All 3 of them, by the Labour Party's own definition of anti-Semitism, are anti-Semites. So imagine if I had gone to a protest, or you had gone to a protest on child grooming, and some of the key individuals at this protest were 3 members of the EDL. How would Sean Fielding, JIM McMAHON and Debbie Abrahams have reacted? They would have been outraged and called us far-right racists. Yet here is would-be councillor Imran Youssef associating himself with an organisation where these 3 individuals regularly attend their events. And the anti-Semitism they promote includes the usual stuff about Israel planning 9/11. Is to create an anti-Jewish and anti-Israeli narrative. The Jewish lobby, the Jews are taking over, and a Holocaust denier. Sarah Wilkinson in the on the bottom right, that is someone who is a Holocaust denier. Holocaust denial is a crime. Wouldn't 6 million losses show up in this poll? Hashtag just saying. These people are anti-Semites. They are as bad as Tommy Robinson and his associates as far as I'm concerned. And if I had stood alongside Tommy Robinson and his mates, even being black and Muslim, I would have been vilified. Yet a councillor, a would-be councillor for the Labour Party, is happy to attend a protest coordinated, led by Palestinian Action. Following what took place in Oldham, the co-founder of Palestinian Action, a man called Richard Goddard, was arrested for blackmail. That's right, arrested for blackmail. Furthermore, this is the Oldham. This is what they did to Oldham. Remember, to this day, silence from the Labour-run council, silence from Sean Fielding, silence from Howard Sykes, silence from JIM McMAHON, Debbie Abrahams, Angela Rayner. They won't condemn what's took place. An anti-Semitic attack led by an organisation with clear links to Holocaust deniers. And so much so, and here he is. So this wasn't just a protest against the shutting down of an Israeli arms factory, because who you protest alongside matters just as much. Surely all of you can see that. Who you protest alongside matters just as much. And this man, knowingly or through ignorance, either way there's not an excuse, took part in a protest led by an organisation with clear anti-Semitic underpinnings. And he was only suspended after we exposed it. He was only suspended after we exposed it. Don't think for a second that the Labour Party didn't know. They knew about who he was or who he is and what he'd done. Because it was Labour Party members, council officers, who told me what had gone on and how outraged they were that Nick Jackson and his mates in the council-funded Oldham Times described this as a protest. It was an anti-Semitic attack. It wasn't a protest at all. It was the equivalent of the EDL marching along Featherstone Road or some street in Glodick and smashing up the Muslim halal butchers. Do you think there would have been silence then? There would have been outrage. So Mr. Imran Youssef is currently suspended as a consequence of what we said. Now his hearing, I think, was this week, or it's due next week or in the next couple of weeks, because they clearly want to make sure he remains the candidate. They want to make sure he remains the candidate just in the same way Abdul Jabbar was happy to launch his re-election campaign alongside a convicted sex offender. There are people in our communities that carry political weight. They control hundreds, if not thousands, of votes. And the Labour Party know that some crimes can be tolerated and will be tolerated depending on what you bring to the table. And Mr. Youssef brings a considerable amount to the Labour Party high table in Oldham. You can see he's there with Palestinian Action people. So he's not there with any other group. This is a Palestinian Action organised protest. Imagine any of you. Imagine Brian Hoban. No, I don't mean it, in an alarming way. I'm just saying, imagine Brian Hoban protesting against child grooming alongside the EDL. What would happen to Councillor Brian Hoban if that was to take place? Disgraceful. The double standards. And those of us who fight the injustice in our town, feel the double standards, because we see it all around us. Well, this is just another example. Unfortunately for JIM McMAHON and Mr. Imran Youssef, Debbie Abrahams, it was not me who was shut down for antisemitism, because I am not an anti-Semite. It was Palestinian Action. Its page got took off. Its page was unpublished by Facebook. Those are my posts. They were back on in minutes. Now the people of Oldham, might want to ask Jim McMahon how much time and how many of his officers he had going through my posts dating back to 2019, 2018, 2017, trying to find dirt on me. And in the end, he reported 4 posts that were deemed not to have broken any of Facebook's rules, not to have been anti-Semitic. Do you see the targeted harassment here? The vindictiveness by a man who has been exposed because of his links to the Asian criminal cartels and the block postal votes and the secret funding of mosques and the hiding of child abuse. Absolutely disgraceful. To this day, that not a single Labour Party politician in this town has spoken out against this clear anti-Semitic attack. And to make matters worse, additional news has been leaked to me that irrespective of the hearing, the Labour Party have instructed a councillor to act as Mr. Imran Youssef's agent. And that instruction has took place because others are reluctant to act as an agent for this man. Anyone else believe lessons have been learnt by the racists that control the Labour Party? Anti-Semites proven, anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-white working class. This is a fake liberal metropolitan elite who have been playing off one minority community, one oppressed community against another for decades. And we're calling them out. And more people can see who these people really are. They are the real racists. Mr. Imran Youssef, of course, has been in Pakistan during lockdown. A wannabe councillor ignored lockdown rules and went off on a jaunt to Pakistan. Jaunt to Pakistan during lockdown. You can see him front and centre there in the blue. Law unto themselves. They can do what they want, when they want, how they want. And the Labour Party will remain. The Labour Party will remain silent.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
My friend Abdul Bertie, we call him actually. I'm going to put him on. And it's, I'm sure all of you understand, I have very few Asian people who openly follow me because I think it takes great courage for people from inside my community to openly follow me. I have Abdul Basit. I have a friend of mine who joined yesterday who runs a restaurant somewhere near Knutsford, and Nurez is called, and Maya Bino, and my younger brother who just follows me, I think just out of loyalty of adding to my numbers. You know, he never joins into any of the things any of our live broadcasts. So I just think I need to promote these people when they openly, not behind the fake profile, but they openly join the broadcast and say hello. Shows great courage. Okay, very quickly. The Cartel news platform, Oldham News and Media, following what I put into the public domain last week, have been in overdrive, attempting to PR the transformation of the former Chadderton, the historic Chadderton Baths. Now, I shared with people how 3 of our historic buildings, Chadderton's historic buildings, were sold to CSDA and who CSDA really are. I think this was meant to be a training centre. Well, no. It's an Asian wedding venue. And don't let anyone tell you it's for anything and everything. I'm sure other people can book it, but it's an Asian wedding venue. And the old police station that they bought, my information is that they paid less than £200,000 for this old police station. It was up for auction initially, and the council withdrew it from auction and sold it as a package with the others. But there will have been a price for this. CSDA, or the people behind CSDA, you can see at the time, the force hopes to sell the police stations. So all the police stations, they reckon they could have got £1.5 million for. So these people got a bargain. It's now up for 525,000. This was our assets. These are our assets. These are community assets. Surely we have a right to know how much the council sold the old police station for, seeing as though these people now are marketing it for £525,000. And before we carry on with Mark, the new Turkish restaurant, I've seen many of you comment. Plans for the former Weatherspoons. The readers reacted. Many of you were anxious as to what it would be. Would it be a modern eating experience according to the planning statement by Istanbul Restaurant Limited? The former Squire Knott Weatherspoons pub on Yorkshire Street in Oldham town centre could be transformed into a new restaurant with a glass-covered rooftop terrace The pub has been vacant in the past year, but a new planning application could revive the site. Submitted by Ibrahim M. Rasool, as Turkish a name as I've ever heard, on behalf of Istanbul Restaurant Limited. The proposal would see a covered rooftop restaurant built on the first floor, changes to the inside of the site, and a revamp of the front of the building. They think we are stupid. A covered rooftop restaurant with a view over Rock Street at the back here. A covered rooftop terrace. A Turkish restaurant, they say. Revive the town centre, they say. Do you know what this is? This is a shisha bar. Because the covered rooftop terrace, the open rooftop terrace, allows for the smoking of shisha pipes. This is a shisha bar. Don't tell me the Oldham Evening Chronicles reporters are thick as pig shit. Or the Oldham Times lot are the same. We know they're bought and paid for. Don't tell me the planning officers don't know what's going on here. A glass-covered rooftop terrace. A glass-covered rooftop terrace. A covered rooftop restaurant. This is a shisha bar. And we in Oldham know what shisha bars really are. Might as well open it, double it up as a youth club, in my opinion. Now, I don't oppose a shisha bar, but let's call it for what it is. It's a shisha bar. How many are in on this? How many are in on this? How many councillors? How many council officers? Who actually owns Istanbul Restaurant Limited? Who is Ibrahim M. Rasool? Who are the people behind this venture? It's a shisha bar.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.
A Clarksfield homeowner is in a legal fight over a dangerous wall. So residents of a small development of luxury homes in Clarksfield say they are taking legal action, avoid paying tens of thousands of pounds to make the perimeter wall of their property safe. Work to make the wall on Roundthorne Road to the rear of the houses on Schoolhouse Road is now underway. Civil engineering firm Rowan Ashworth is carrying out the work after being engaged by Oldham Council, which says it will seek to recover the cost from the homeowners. The footpath next to the wall was fenced off for safety reasons in July, so wall's fallen over. Owners of 6 houses affected say they have been told the work will result in them being billed for £20,000 each when it is finished. £20,000 each. Now they have joined forces and are saying they will go to court rather than pay for the repairs. Independent local councillor Aftab Hussain is also backing the residents in their fight. The houses, along with the retaining wall, were built 11 years ago. So only 11 years ago this wall was built by Greenstone Construction Limited, run by Mr Zaman of Queen's Road, Oldham. Mr Zaman refused to comment other than to tell the Oldham Times that the wall issue is nothing to do with him. So his company built it 11 years ago, but it's got nothing to do with him. And it was up to residents to claim on their insurance policies. His company is currently building other houses in the Westwood area of Oldham. Are you ready? Let me share with you some of the other places Mr Zaman is building property or houses or whatever. The William Hague Trust left the Hollies, the historic Hollies on Frederick Street, to the people of the town. The Hollies was sold by the council. This document is dated the 18th of December 2019. In August 2018, the Charities Commission approved the sale of the Hollies to Greenstone Construction Limited. Where have you heard Greenstone Construction before? Mr Zaman, indeed. So the Hollies was sold to Mr Zaman. Progress in completing the legal agreement for the sale proved to be slow, and in November 2018, remember this is a document in December 2019, was it December 2019? Yeah, 18th of December 2019. Okay, so it goes back to events in December 2018. Under the terms of the agreement, Greenstone were required to pay $93,000 on exchange, a further $183,000 by the 21st of December 2019, and the remainder $640,000 by the 21st of June. So the Hollies, along with a significant amount of land, I would imagine, was sold for give or take £1 million. The first payment has been made, and Greenstone have confirmed that they are ready to make the second payment of £183,000 on time. Okay, so the council have sold it to someone on drip feed payments over 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it looks like. But now Greenstone Construction have requested an extension for the further 6 months to make the final payment by the 21st of December 2020. They state that this is because of unforeseen issues on another site they are developing in Royton. Greenstone claim the project has stalled due to promised funding from the Greater Manchester Housing Investment Fund. So Mr Zaman wasn't paying for it out of his back pocket. He was scheduling to get money from the Greater Manchester Housing Investment Fund, which has had a knock on the plans for the Hollies. Officers are aware that there have been delays with their application to the Housing Investment Fund, which have now been resolved. So they've got options. Do they extend the grant time or do they say no? They're giving them an extension on the 21st of December 2020 because the preferred option is that they've already paid a non-refundable amount of $93,000 with a further $183,000 due imminently. This is the meeting the year earlier. To note the slow progress made with regards to the sale of the Hollies. So the year earlier, already the council's officers had concerns about the slow pace with the Hollies. Ready? A contract to sell the property was entered into in July 2012 with Qumar Zaman, trading as Greenstone Construction Limited. Paul Boots, you're the property guy, you'd be building. 2012, the council entered into an agreement to sell the Hollies to him. And they received the first payment. They received the first payment in 2018. How about I want to buy something off one of you guys? And I said to you, nah, you know what? How about I want to buy a building? And said, right, I've not got the money now, but I might have it in 7 years' time. Can we enter into an agreement? 8 years' time. 6 years, 7 years' time. So they entered into an agreement with Qumar Zaman in July 2012. Thank you, Paul. Is that what you call it, Paul? Wait, mate, wait. Just wait. Let me get to what I do with the why. Would you agree to sell something at a price 6 years at a price 8 years or 6 years value before? I can't even get the words out because you can all see what's going on here. However, a condition was a sale was that Greenstone submitted a planning application for the redevelopment of the property. This was submitted, and however, this was never submitted, And so in 2016, so you agree into a sale with a guy in 2012, and you give him you tell him he's got to put in a planning application. And by 2016, 4 years later, he's not submitted the planning application. And the council considered Greenstone was in breach of the contract, and the contract was terminated, and the deposit of $42,500 was retained in a separate trust fund account with the terms of the contract. So Greenstone had already done this with you in 2012. Yeah. They'd already done this to you in 2012. And then in 2017, when you've got to remarket the property, Greenstone Construction was selected as its bid proved to be the highest value for the site. So then you go back after this guy's messed you about for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. You go back and you sell it to him again. What's he going to pay you with this time? Magic beans? A non-returnable deposit of 30% was also offered, and bank statements showing proof of funds provided. Now, if 30% deposit was already there and bank statements showed proof of funds, why did the council, why did this take place? Remember the year after? I've shared this with you first. Why did he pay £93,000? Is that 30%? I doubt it. And a further 183,000 on 2019. So he's tied the council up on this when the council have been complicit for 7 years. And now it says that the final payment is to be paid by the 21st of December 2020. I would like one of you to submit a Freedom of Information request to Oldham Council. This is trust money. This is charity money. The Hollies was a residential home for one of the Lees families. It goes back to the history and heritage of our town. What? How much money has been received from Greenstone? It says here the £93,000 was received on exchange on the 21st of December 2018. So he dragged that out from 2017 to exchange in 2018. So he dragged that out for the last year. Kel, forget the last payment, sweet. I want to know, first of all, has the £183,000 by the 21st of December 2019 been paid? And the £640,000 by the 21st of June that is asked a 6-month extension for, which takes it to December. My information, and by now people should know where I get my information from, is that this hasn't been paid. This is the Hollies. This belongs to the people of the town. It was left in trust for the benefit of the town. Like Carnegie Library. And here you have another Asian businessman that comes along. Ties up the council for 7 years or 8 years. And claims now his delays were because he's not been able to get the money out of the Greater Manchester Housing Investment Fund. Remember, he'd shown proof of funds beforehand. Where's the proof of funds disappeared here? In this 1 year later update, Oldham Council. And all this came to me from Clarksfield homeowners in legal fight over dangerous wall. So this guy's form is, he's built a wall that's fallen over in under 11 years. You know what's coming next, don't you? You know what's coming next. That's the man there. Feeder there at the front. Another Labour Party lady next to her. Next to Feeder. With Mr Zaman. There he is. Nice Labour Party gathering. It's not a cartel gathering, it's just a gathering of Asian Labour Party supporters. Men. Oh, is that Jim? Jim. Is that Jim? Oh, look at that. Look at that. Mr Zaman is a former Labour Party candidate. He's not just an ordinary property developer in the town. No, he rubs shoulders with the bigwigs. Does that interest-free loan and the delayed payments and the sale and the yeah. What are people thinking? So what's mates rates, mate? Is it like Oldham Central Mosque where you get an interest-free loan for a discount price for 20 years or something? Hey Jim, I have 500 votes. Can I buy the Hollies, please? I'll pay you in samosas. I have a plan. I ain't got the money now, but I'll get a council, I'll get a government grant. But it might take a few years. Can I drag it out for 8 years? Yeah. I've still got those votes. When are we going to have enough? When are we going to say enough is enough? The Hollies was left in trust for the people of our town. The council should never have sold it. In fact, the sale of it was dodgy. In fact, of how the trustees arranged it, because the trustees, one of them, was a councillor at the time, and they arranged this dodgy sale. They did it with 146 Werner for Hold recently. They sold it to an Asian businessman. The Carnegie Library, the old police station, the swimming baths, Glodic baths. This is corruption. This is nothing other than corruption. Do you think JIM McMAHON didn't know? He was a Labour Party leader during the period where most of this was dragged out. Sorry, Emma, I was trying to be serious. Fold and return basis, not... Oh... Paul, our town is being robbed blind, my friend. The Hollies and its land belong to the people of this town. It should never have been sold this way. It should never have been allowed to be caught up in some sort of extended off-market arrangement with Mr Zaman, a clear associate of JIM McMAHON. And if he hasn't paid by the 20th of December or whatever the date was, and I'll bring the date back up, sorry, I'm just going to swipe this along. Greenstone Construction Limited have requested an extension of the time for a further 6 months to make the final payment by the 21st of December 2020. So at the time of this report being produced, £183,000 was meant to be paid by the 21st of December 2019, and another £640,500 was meant to be paid by the 21st of June 2020, and that was extended to the 21st of December. Have these monies been paid? My information is no. Ready for something else? The council's decision when they agreed to resell it to this organisation, to Mr Zaman, the council's own decision was option 1 is the preferred option. Continue with the sale of the land to Greenstone Construction Limited, but if no substantial progress has been made by the 31st of December 2018, then the site is to be remarketed. Their own decision was to remarket the site, but they backtracked on it. In the meeting on the 18th of December 2019, they backtracked on it. And now we find out, not mentioned anywhere. Do you not think Nick Jackson at the Oldham Times, the council-funded Oldham Times, didn't know about who Mr Zaman was? Of course he knew who Mr Zaman was. He knew full well who Mr Zaman was and who his associates were. We are being robbed. Look at him. Look at Jim. With his core cartel-controlled Asian bloc vote there. What does that picture tell you? And I'll zoom out so you can see it in its wider sense. What does this tell you? What does this picture tell you? There's Jenny Harrison at the front. Do you see her? Come on, Jenny. When are you going to tell us when you quit at Round Farm and when you became a councillor? Because if there's an overlap, Jenny, you should be in prison. You'd make it electoral fraud. Brilliant, isn't it, David? Can I delay my council tax for 8 years, please? Indeed, Gary. That's exactly what it is, isn't it? Look at him. Just look at him. Shall we continue? I don't know what else to say on that. I'll put up what I want, asking as a freedom of information request. But it's more than a freedom of information request. It should be a question asked directly to JIM McMAHON of his relationship with this man. And it should also be a question asked to Sean Fielding. Has the payment been made? The people of this town demand an immediate answer. Has the outstanding balances effectively delayed for 8 years? An 8-year sale. Cartel town. Oh, I see him. In fact, is that right? In the corner. Is that Mr. Mushtaq? Is that Shahid Mushtaq in the corner there? At the back. You can see on the front row Abdul Jabbar, the Jabber. We move on to the cartel fight out in Coldust. The kingpin, Abdul Jabbar, is having sleepless nights as an independent, a former cartel member who was hung out to dry and scapegoated, has launched a campaign to take on Abdul Jabbar. Fearful that finally he has some serious opposition. This is something like out of a Japanese ninja movie. Like only a ninja can kill a ninja. It's increasingly looking likely that only the cartels can beat the cartels. So this ex-cartel councillor is taking him on. And Jabbar is that worried, and McMahon is that worried, that they've been organising Zoom meetings. I shared details of the Zoom meeting yesterday. This is the deputy leader of the council, and this is the MP of the town, JIM McMAHON. It wasn't a private Zoom meeting. Jabbar changed the password. Now some of you said, oh, this meeting isn't happening, or they can do what they want. No, you don't miss the point. He's your MP. He shouldn't be attending any secret meetings with cartels. Abdul Jabbar is the deputy leader of the council, standing for re-election. He shouldn't be having meetings where the white people of Coldhurst are excluded. What, JIM McMAHON turns up via Zoom as the chief guest? Can you imagine a meeting where Asian people would be excluded? And the outcry? Oh, this meeting went ahead. See, Coldhurst update meeting. Chief guest JIM McMAHON. This was shared across Coldhurst. This is the Zoom meeting that took place. Look at them. Look at them. Can you imagine if he had a whites only meeting and changed the passwords? Just imagine the deputy leader of the town and the town's MP having an election update meeting. JIM McMAHON clearly there with his Labour Party sign behind him and polling station. And they changed the passwords to exclude white people. Can you imagine it was the other way around? They changed the passwords to exclude Asian people. Cartel town. What were they planning? What are they selling? Are they selling our kids? Or are they selling more buildings? Or maybe another interest-free loan for 20 years to build another mosque or two? What is it, McMahon? This is outrageous. And do you know what will happen? They'll wheel out the white campaigners to go and knock on the white doors to try and get the old white people who've always voted Labour to vote for Jabbar. They will play the race card by sending out the white campaigners to knock on the white doors. Because they know they have a fight on their hands in Coldhurst. There is a cartel civil war. And sorry, the enemy of my enemy may not be my friend, but I'm enjoying watching this. Jabbar, you are a disgrace. How many years have you been a councillor? How many houses have you promised people? How many grants have you guys fast-tracked? How many public assets have you sold? And now you're having a Zoom meeting where your white leader, who knows there's 10,000 votes in Coldhurst, and knows you're the gateway, you're the kingpin of those 10,000 votes. So it doesn't matter that Abdul Jabbar, this time last year, launched his re-election campaign alongside a convicted sex offender. The MP still rocks up to support him because he knows what the votes are worth. And it doesn't matter that this meeting is an exclusive meeting for the local Bangladeshi cartel, the OBA cartel. Victor, it reminded me of something of a James Bond movie when he's took those photographs and all the gangsters have been identified. My friend Bert is in there, but he joined because I asked him to join to make sure the meeting was still going on and he could get the password. So yes, they changed the passwords. And this is a picture from the meetings. And they weren't letting any of you white folk join. I'm surprised it actually made any reference to a polling station, Gary. Because I know what these guys were discussing includes, and it always does, it includes postal votes. How many postal votes have you got? How many postal votes can we get here? How many postal votes can we get there? How many postal votes have you got? How many postal votes will the mosque give us? Oh yeah, I'm telling you, some of these are also directors of the, or trustees of the local mosque, the Oldham Central Mosque. Can you imagine, and I'm sorry to press the point, but can you imagine a white-only meeting in this way? Where the blacks were kept outside and said, you can't come in. That's me done for another week. And I hope you found what I shared with you just as shocking as it always is every week. And yes, I have more for next week and more for the week after. Cartel run town. Yes, Paul. We are where we are in this town. And the voice we have is this space. There is a reason why JIM McMAHON has tried to close us down. There is a reason why Sean Fielding and all of his other associates in the Labour Party and the Council are trying to close us down and lie about who we are and our beliefs. I can only keep going as long as you keep supporting me. So I'm grateful to the 120 or so who now openly support us on Facebook. I can only keep going for so long, but I'll keep going for as long as I can. Thank you. Good night.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.